Grand Rising family. Praise the great I am, giving honor to the Son, his will be done. We're continuing with our program and 3 called The Great Eight. It is the 8 pivotal points in regard to the Father's times and seasons, also Passover feast seasons, which are coming up quickly and approaching. So today we're reading Exodus 13, and we're asked to approach the throne of grace. Dear Heavenly Father, to be present within thy face, be edified by thy word, and to be filled with the set apart spirit. Exodus 13, the firstborn consecrated. Then the great I am spoke to Moshe, saying, Consecrate to me all the firstborn, whatever opens the womb among the children of Israel, both of man and beast, it is mine, the feast of unleavened bread. And Moshe said to the people, Remember this day in which you went out of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. For by strength of hand the great I am brought you out of this place. No leavened bread shall be eaten. On this day you are going out in the month Abib, and it shall be when the great I am brings you into the land of the Canaanites, and the Hittites, and the Amorites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites, which he swore to your fathers to give you, a land flowing with milk and honey, that you shall keep this service in this month. 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread, and on the seventh day there shall be a feast to the great I am. Unleavened bread shall be eaten 7 days, and no leavened bread shall be seen among you, nor shall leaven be seen among you in all your quarters. And you shall tell your son in that day, saying, This is done because of what the great I am did for me when I came from Egypt. It shall be as a sign to on your hand and as a memorial between your eyes. And the great I am's law may be in your mouth, for with a strong hand the great I am has brought you out of Egypt. You shall therefore keep this ordinance in its season from year to year. Okay, breaking for one moment. Oh, hey Beth, greetings. Hi, how are you? So, continuing reading. If you have any questions, please like, share, subscribe. And if you have any questions, you can post them in the chat. As soon as I'm done, I'll address those questions. Continuing with Exodus 13 and 11. And it shall be when the great I am brings you into the land of the Canaanites, as he swore to you and your fathers, and gives it to you, that you shall set apart the great I am to the great I am all that open the matrix. Actually, that means the womb. That is every firstborn that from an animal which you have, the male shall be the great I am's. But every firstborn of a donkey you shall redeem with a lamb. And if you will not redeem it, then you shall break its neck. And all the firstborn of man among your sons you shall redeem. So it shall be when your son asks you in time to come, saying, What is this? That you shall say to him, By strength of hand the great I am brought us out of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. And it came to pass, when Pharaoh was stubborn about letting us go, that the great I am killed all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both the firstborn of man and the firstborn of beast. Therefore I sacrificed to the great I am all males that opened the womb, but all the firstborn of my sons I redeemed. It shall be as a sign on your hand and frontlets between your eyes, for by strength of hand the great I am brought us out of Egypt. Now, I want to make a comment about Exodus 13:11 through 16. So you have people out there who will pick and choose what they read out of the Bible, out of the Father's word, and then they'll try to say against the Father, "Oh, I can never worship a God that is killing the firstborn." But if you know your Bible, you will remember that this was done to the children of Israel on quite many different occasions. And so it's not a matter of revenge as far as the children of Israel are concerned, but the Father says in the Bible that vengeance is mine, saith the Lord, if you remember that particular scripture. So here, the Pharaoh brought this upon himself. It truthfully could have been avoided, but they were the ones. That's how Moses came to be in the palace, if you remember, because he was saved from the slaughter that was going on of all the male children in Egypt. And so, if Pharaoh had let go of the people, this would never have happened. But since he wanted not only to kill them, but he wanted to continue abusing them and utilizing them as slaves and free labor. And we can relate to that because if you're African American and you live here in America, then our forefathers were slaves, also those who were in Jamaica and some of South America. So, continuing reading. And I made that comment in regard to people always wanting to say how mean God is, but they don't even really know the complete Bible. They just only know part of the story, and it's used as an excuse not to um, take responsibility for what they're supposed to be doing. So I'm going to go ahead and continue reading Exodus 13 and 17, called the Wilderness Way. Then it came to pass when Pharaoh had let the people go that the great I am did not lead them by the land of the Philistines, although that was near. For the great I am said, lest perhaps the people change their minds when they see war and return to Egypt. So the great I am led the people around by the way of the wilderness of the Red Sea. And the children of Israel went up in orderly ranks out of the land of Egypt. And Moses took the bones of Joseph with him, for he had placed the children of Israel under solemn oath, saying, the great I am will surely visit you, and you shall carry up my bones from here with you. So they took their journey from Succoth and camped in Etham at the edge of the wilderness. And the great I am went before them by day in a pillar of a cloud to lead the way, and by night in the pillar of fire to give them light, so as to go by day and night. He did not take away the pillar of the cloud by day or the pillar of fire by night from before the people. So that was a reading of Exodus 13 in its entirety. We had read Exodus 12 yesterday and Deuteronomy 16 Sunday. And I will be continuing to read through the pivotal scriptures that apply to Passover. But I also wanted to say if you've never seen Cecil B. DeMille's The Ten Commandments, I believe it's on YouTube. I believe it is. It may not be. It may be on Netflix or something like that. But I would, if you're, especially if you're new to the Bible or newly awakened, it's one of the better ones. It's pretty entertaining. It's one of the better ones. Although we know, you know, they replace the people in it. But um, also, you are invited to Passover dinner here on YouTube. So I'm going to be doing Passover, what is that? The 30th. So the Hebrew date for that day is actually the first month and the 14th day, unknown year, until the Father divulges what year this really is. But the Gregorian heathen date for that is going to be 3/30 of 2026. And so, hey, Roe dear, I'd like to introduce you to Beth Spragan there. She actually, we used to go to school together, so she resides in the same city I reside in. So, Beth, Roe dear, Beth, if old McMoney comes on here, then you may see her also. So, just introducing you too. And so, I will be doing Passover live, and it's going to be here, it's going to be later, because of when the sun sets here. So it will start, the program will be, I believe, 2 hours long. So it'll be our 7:30 to 9:30. And the reason is because we're going to be doing some mock. It's only going to take us like maybe 1 or 2 minutes, especially if you had pre-done it, if you set things up ahead of time. So I'm going to be doing things like, I'm going to go ahead and put my string on my doorpost. You could use red string, red thread, uh, some kind of red cloth, and I usually just tape it or tack it to the two sides of the doorpost, and then on the top let it hang. It doesn't have to look pretty, and it represents the blood that was supposedly struck on the two sides of the doorpost. Something else I always do every year is I go around my property in which I live, and I ask the Father to favor and protect this area. And that's something that I would admonish you also to do, um, because this is the renewal of the covenant. And it was never, you read, we read yesterday in 12 of Exodus that it was the renewal of the covenant, and it was to be forever that we did this. So this is a memorial. This is a memorial that we're supposed to be doing, and we're supposed to do it forever. It never said stop doing it, right? And so, with that being said, I'll just repeat what I was saying, that I am going to have a Passover. It's called Passover Together, the renewal of the covenant. It will be on March 30th. It will start at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it will be 2 hours long. So that we cover, because we need, the reason it's that late is because the word says that we're supposed to do certain things at sunset and twilight, and so that's why it's pretty late. So they're talking about the PM twilight and the PM sunset, and so that's why it's going to be that late. But the things that you should have, I'll just go over them right quick. I do apologize for coming on here late. We had a little mishap with a dozen eggs on the kitchen floor earlier, so I had to clean that up. And if you've ever dropped eggs on the floor, you know it's a mess. So, um, at any rate, I know that the Rev 29ers teach a Seder plate. There's no such thing as that. We are, and I forget which one covers what we're supposed to have. I think it's one of these books here that covers it. But I'll just tell you, you're only supposed to have, you can even have a tiny little piece, because lamb, they quadruple the price of lamb. So you can have a tiny little piece, the smallest piece of, it doesn't have care. It doesn't matter how small the piece of lamb you have is. So I would have like a glass of fresh squeezed grape juice, so you can get grapes from the store. You don't have to even have a lot of that. You can have a swallow or two, or make you a whole glass. But I would stress having fresh, because when you, it's something about it. I did fresh grape juice last year, year before last also. There is no taste like it. There's no taste like it. It was so refreshing. It's like something you've never tasted and you want to do it all the time. But I reserve that for because I'm not really a big juice drinker, because it has a lot of sugar in it, even natural fruits. So here's the list. Roe dear, if you could type this in the chat, and if you could, guys, could like, share, and subscribe. So I would have a glass of water, a glass of fresh squeezed grape juice, my matzah, bitter herbs, and what am I missing? And lamb. Did I say that? So lamb, bitter herbs, water, matzah, and grape juice. That is the lamb's supper. Okay, that's what you're supposed to have. That egg is basically a form of Ishtar Easter worship, and is not to have any place at our dinner. Um, so I'm going to repeat those again. We're to have water, grape juice, matzah, homemade matzah. Please do not use. It has been strongly confirmed that the Rev 2 Niners have been, the people in power with the Rev 2 Niners have been putting things in what's supposed to be kosher. So don't buy any products, don't buy anything processed. The whole part of the whole goal of the Feast of Unleavened Bread is it's a form of a fast, truthfully. So it has like more than one meaning. It's a form of a fast. It represents um, leaving the world of sin for entering into the promised land. And so that night, when we perform the Passover dinner, as soon as you wake up the next day, you are in the Feast of Unleavened Bread for 7 days. So 7 days, 7 nights. There's no yeast to be found in your homes. That includes baking powder. Now, this is the way I do it, but because I have like anything that's open, I threw away all my bread yeast. I threw away my sourdough starter, and I threw away any opened baking soda and any opened bake. And I don't really use baking powder, so I threw that away also. So as I understood it, cream of tartar. Do we know what cream of tartar really is? I don't know. Where's my other phone? Ugh, did I leave it in the kitchen? We never did clarify that, what cream of tartar is. Let me see if I can. to get this signed in. If you could find it, yeah. So, yeah. So I'll look it up for tomorrow's because this device is not online, which is the way I want it. I have several. But anyway, tomorrow we're going to be doing Leviticus 23. And what I want to do is I want to come out with an entire list of scriptures, even some of the smaller ones that pinpoint what we're going to do on Passover. So basically, we're doing Passover prep. I also put out there a several small short videos. One of them is like a Passover pro tip. Basically, if you need me to kind of narrow down what you should and should not eat during the Feast of Unleavened Bread, basically it's fresh vegetables, fresh fruit, meat, no processed foods, no parched grains. So during Passover I don't eat rice. I substitute it with quinoa. It's kind of the same process of cooking rice, but quinoa, I believe it's quinoa is a seed. It's not a grain. So, but you're not to have any leaven, no yeast, no baking soda, no baking powder, and no sourdough starter. So, thank you, Rodeer, for that. Cream of tartar does not contain yeast, according to Google. But is it a rising agent? Because if it's a rising agent, I'm gonna have to look it up because O McMoney brought that up yesterday, I do believe. I'm gonna have to look that up. So Um, other things that I posted today or am posting within the next few minutes are like some ideas for the week of unleavened bread because during the week of unleavened bread, you're also supposed to, even if you only eat a tiny bite, so some people don't like matzah, they don't like unleavened bread. And please make your own. It's very simple. Um, it could be as simple as flour, salt, and flour, salt, olive oil, and right. They do have recipes for it here on YouTube also. But here are some of the ideas, some of the things that you can make. Okay, so you said yes, it says it is a leveling agent. Okay, thank you so much for that. So yeah, something you can't have in your house also. So some of the meal ideas that I come up with to incorporate matzah, you can make matzah Mexican pizza, lentil burgers. I'm really trying to eat a far less red meat. You can have things like kale and pinto bean stew, cinnamon toast made from matzah. You can have matzo ball soup. You could do tossed salads and have matzah as chips on the side. So you can make matzah chips. Basically, you could either fry or bake them. And so instead of using something that's processed, you can have those. And I've actually made those before because I was making a charcuterie board, if that's how you say it, for someone who couldn't eat gluten. And so I had to make them. I forgot what I made them out of, but I just toasted them. And a charcuterie board is where they do the vegetables, the fruits, whatever, and either bread or chips. So you can make matzah dumplings. You could utilize matzah to make cheese bean empanadas. You could do deep fried matzah balls that are coated in like different things. You could have tomato soup and grilled cheese matzah, where basically you take two pieces of the round matzah. I always make mine round to make them look like fajita bread. But anyway, you could take two of those, put the cheese in the middle, and then you make your grilled cheese out of that. So another thing about it is that the cheese, you can't just get any willy nilly cheese because read your labels for the week of unleavened bread. I made the mistake my first one of eating potato chip and it had yeast in it. I was so mad. I was like, that's what really started me to reading labels. So now I read labels. Most things, if I buy something processed, it's not going to have more than three ingredients and they have to be natural. You really need to adhere to that during the Feast of Unleavened Bread because otherwise you may make a mistake. Okay. So that's why, and it's not as daunting as you might think it is. Um, I think some people just overdo it. So as like desserts, I'm going to be making coconut macaroons of various kinds. I'm just going to make a basic macaroon and then top them with all different things on top to make different ones. Like some will have chocolate, some will have caramel, some will be caramel and chocolate with nuts. Some might have strawberry um, jelly. Some might have pineapple jelly. And you have to get creative with it. And it's just something to help you plan and survive the Feast of Unleavened Bread. And it's not hard. The first one can be because the reason that it's hard is because we're so surrounded with foods that are full of preservatives. So if you're like me and you really particularly almost, I'm like, I say I'm 95% vegan. This is why I say that because I only eat beef once a month now, and I might eat chicken once a month also, and try to eat fish once per week. So I don't know what that's called, but that's just what I've been called to do. So it makes it easier for me because number one, I'm a label reader, and number two, it makes it a lot easier when you go into the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Some other ideas for food during that time is to make a cocoa matzo almonds. It's with almonds. What it is basically where you take your matzah after it's been baked and you take that piece of matzah and you pour organic cocoa syrup over it that's going to harden. And you could put almonds or pecans or whatever. And then once it hardens, that's why they call it pecan bark. I think that's what they call it. So it's basically making a dessert that's wholesome. Other ideas, let's see. Oh, matzo turtle candy. The same principle I just talked about, except you're going to use caramel, chocolate, and nuts. Um, Matzo eggplant parmesan. Matzo apple pie, where you use the matzo as the pie crust. Um, Fried dumpling matzo. Matzo fruit tarts, where basically you take the matzo and you make a cheesecake and then you put fruit on top of it. Or you can use white chocolate to make the bark of the candy that was made. A couple years ago, I made my own homemade fudge, chocolate fudge. I made chocolate fudge, white fudge, and I made my own caramel. So I made my own turtles, and I gave them out as gifts to the people that I used to do the feast with, but they've moved very far out, and one moved to Tennessee. So that's like way, whole nother state. One of the things to satisfy your carb hunger during this time is to utilize your potatoes in various forms, whether you make French fries or whether you make potato pancakes or whether or not you just make shredded potato uh, fried potato cakes. That's what they call latchkes. And I think they use egg to bind them, but I'm not sure. Like an egg mixture with potato, and then they fry them hard. Potatoes and onions are another good idea. But as far as your meats are concerned, the only restriction there are the biblical dietary laws, which we don't eat pork, first of all. We don't eat shellfish. You don't eat any insects that aren't approved by the Bible. And the only two insects they say that we can eat, and I'm not running to do that, I believe are crickets or locusts, something like that. But I ain't running to do that, okay? So um so there's just a lot of ideas. If you search those ideas here on YouTube, you'll get a lot of ideas and just Google it for just different simple things. And my biggest suggestion during the Feast of Unleavened Bread is not to cook for one day, but to cook for 2 days so that it's not so harrowing. So I've already cooked all my meats. That's the other thing I did. And I put my meats in the freezer for the Feast of Unleavened Bread. So the only thing I have to do is come up with side dishes, and that's going to be simple for me because I'm doing some form of potato, whether it's French fries, mashed potatoes, latchkes, um, baked yams, or sweet potato kugel, which big sweet potato kugel is like a it's like a baked sweet mashed sweet potato dish. It's just like mashed yams, mashed sweet potatoes. Okay, that's about it with the and I was fortunate enough to find some vegan marshmallows. I was like, oh my goodness. I found some years ago and I was not able to find them, but this year I went to the specialty store and I was able to find them. So I'm able to put those in my sweet potato coogan when I make it. So I'm gonna make that sweet potato coogan. Basically, it's like a very sweet mashed yam with brown sugar, butter, and marshmallows. And the last time I made it, I couldn't put I didn't have the marshmallows. So yeah, so it's really good though. So I'm gonna make that. And like I said, so again, I'm just gonna recap the suggestions. Try to cook for 2 days at a time. That way, you're only really cooking what 4 times within the 8 days. So the other thing is any lamb you have left over, it has to it's supposed to be burned, but I tried to burn it last year. That didn't work out for me. I could not get it to burn. Um, so I just threw it away. So you're not to consume it. That's why I said if you don't like lamb or enough to eat what you have there for that night, excuse me, then you're gonna need to throw it away. And part of my thing was I was fasting. I mean, I was on a fast of no eating or drinking. So by the time I got to the um the lamb supper, I couldn't eat that much. So I ended up having to throw away some of my lamb. So I know better this time. I don't know why I'm coughing. Anyway, let's see. Oh, another dessert that I make is ice milk dessert with heavy cream or sour cream, where I just take and make sure your cream is organic. You want to be as healthy as possible during the Feast of Unleavened Bread. So I just take a heavy whipping cream or sour cream, and I use maple syrup in it, and I put in whatever I want, whether I'm trying to make like a butter pecan. So I use sour cream, excuse me, just sour cream. If you want to freeze it, you can, but it'll be harder to get it out later. So basically, I just use a little bit of maple syrup in it, and I put whatever, what do they call it? A parfait. I make a parfait out of things because even the ice cream has additives, preservatives, and I think some of them even have yeast and things that we don't want during that time. So it's really a time to be healthy. Going into the chat, locusts and honey, yum not. I know, right? That was John the Baptist. Like, yeah, I'm not trying to do that. so, so I will. So we will be doing our Passover supper live on March 30th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I'm gonna be going over this food list every time I go on for the half an hour. So we're at the half an hour mark, and I promised I wouldn't go over that because I wanted these to be brief, so that we could get through them. And the last one is going to be Genesis 1 on March 29th, and that is the day before the evening of March 30th. And I'm going to be going over that one more time. So if you have any questions, you can email me. If you want me to just email you back a list or something like that of the do's and don'ts to make it simpler, I should probably do that anyway for people who want to know so you can have something to refer to. So you can email me at eloaa2008 at gmail.com. That's eloa2008 at gmail.com. So with that, I'm going to say, don't turn to the left or the right. Stay on the Father's path. I love you, but the Father loves you first and best. The Father said that before we were formed in the womb, He knew us. It is His will that none are lost, but we all have free will. We get to choose whether or not we go. The Father's not going to make anybody do anything they don't want to do. But I would admonish you to at least, if you don't believe, for anybody listening to this in the replay, if you don't believe in the Father, then all you have to do is ask Him if He truly exists. Ask Him to prove it to you. I did. He did it for me, and He'll do it for you. And with that, I to see you tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for the reading of Leviticus 23. Praise the great I am, giving honor to the Son, his will be done.